Hi everyone, Flaming Footy here and welcome back to a new video on the channel. And today guys, here we are to continue my AFL 2023 round previews. In today's video, we're going to be previewing every game coming up in round 24 of the 2023 AFL season. So I was going through the ladder before and after, reviewing last round and going through the Coleman medal race. Let's go ahead, hop right into things. Round 23 review. Brisbane defeated Collingwood by 24 points. Richmond defeated North Melbourne by 29 points. Carlton defeated Gold Coast by 4 points. GWS smashed Essendon by 126 points. St Kilda defeated the Cats by 33 points. Sydney defeated Adelaide by 1 point. West Coast defeated the Western Bulldogs by 7 points. Melbourne defeated Hawthorn by 27 points. And Port Adelaide defeated Fremantle by 16 points. It's going to whiz through the ladder really quickly here at the moment. This is what we've got heading into the rounds. And of course, it's going to be a couple of big games to decide who can finish where. There's still plenty of stuff up for grabs. And for sides which are not in contention for the top 8, it can come down to draft picks as well. Where do you want to finish in the draft order? But anyway, though, we're going to go ahead, hop right into things. Round 24 preview starts off on the Friday night with the game, which was going to be a big one a couple of weeks ago. Not anymore. Essendon versus Collingwood Friday night. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still going to be huge. The crowd, it's still going to be absolutely massive. There's still going to be a ton of people there to go and watch this game anyway. So it's going to be the most attended game of the rounds. It's huge. But in terms of the finals hopes, and that is what this round is going to hinge on, it's not that big. Now, Collingwood, of course, they need to win this game to seal up top spot. Port Adelaide and Brisbane do have very winnable games as well. So, yes, they need to win this game to seal up top spot. Essendon, they would need a mathematical dream to make finals. So, pretty much realistically, you can put a line through them. They need to win this game by 100 or more points, and the Giants to lose against Carlton by 100 or more. It's going to be very, very, very hard for them to get in. The Western Bulldogs probably the only realistic chance. So, Essendon 10th, Collingwood first. Essendon defensively last week had a huge breakdown. Nothing went right back there. Collingwood couldn't quite get the job done over Brisbane. They were okay, but Brisbane were the better side. Collingwood for me, and this could be, the margin for this game could really be anywhere from 1 point to upwards of a pretty hefty margin. I think Collingwood will win by a pretty hefty margin, 45 points. First game, Saturday, North Melbourne and Gold Coast at Blundstone Arena. This is one of those nothing games. Of course, we know Damien Hardwick is a brand new Gold Coast Suns coach, 6-year deal. This is going to be their last game under Stephen King, the interim assistant coach. So, of course, he'd like to go out on a win. And North Melbourne, they're in 18th spot. They're probably relatively happy about that, in all honesty. Pick 1, Harley Reid, going their way, and they could get pick 2 as a compensation for Ben Mackay. But if they do win this game, they will go into 17th position. So, again, if they do put up a spirited effort and do get over Gold Coast in Tassie, they can rise up the ladder. It's 18th versus 15th last week. Gold Coast showed really good signs against Carlton, just couldn't quite get the job done. And North Melbourne showed good signs against Richmond, but couldn't quite get the job done either. So, two sides that were close last week, but couldn't quite. And I feel like Gold Coast, they're a better side. It is 18th versus 15th, but Gold Coast are tracking better than a 15th place side, and I think Gold Coast win here by 28 points. Alright, also at the same time, Saturday afternoon, Hawthorn and Freo at the MCG. And again, it's another one of those games which isn't going to have any ramifications on finals, but it is two very good young sides going head-to-head. Both these two sides have a lot of young talent, and this will be an interesting game. Hawthorn are in 16th, Fremantle are in 14th. It's at the MCG. And Hawthorn were alright against Melbourne, Freo were alright against Port Adelaide. But again, both these two sides showed similar performances last week where they were alright and hung around, but again, couldn't quite get the job done. And I feel like Hawthorn, they're the better of the sides here. Hawthorn have played some really good footy throughout the year. They've played some really good footy, but also some really poor footy. Same with Freo. But look, I do feel like here Hawthorn will win this one by 16 points in a pretty decent game of footy, in all honesty. Alright, Saturday twilight, this is where things start to get a little bit interesting. Final stakes here on the line. In the Saturday twilight game at the Gabba, Brisbane second hosting St Kilda 6th. St Kilda, they're locked in finals. It's just where they finish now. If they could finish as high as 5th, as low as 8th. So there's still a fair bit, and they would love a home final at Marvel Stadium rather than having to travel to either Sydney or that's the only place they'd have to travel to, would be Sydney to take on the Giants or the Swans. And then it would either be Victoria for their home final against Carlton, or if the Western Bulldogs get in for the Giants, the Western Bulldogs. So, that they might have to travel to Sydney to either SCG or Giant Stadium, but aside from that, they'll be staying in Victoria for an elimination final, which would probably be at the MCG. Now, Brisbane, they played really well last week against Collingwood. They are back at the Gabba, a place where they have won every game this year. I'd be expecting them to win this one as well. Margin could be interesting, but look, Brisbane, significant home ground advantage here. I reckon they can do it by 29 points and really just send the competition a notice, and also huge for their top two hopes. And if they win this game, if Collingwood lose, they can go first. But if Collingwood do win, which they are expected to, then they can finish second and get a home final at the Gabba, which is huge. If they win that home qualifying final, they get a home prelim there. And then if they win that, they're through the granny, just like that. Saturday night, huge stakes at GMHBA Stadium. Geelong and the Western Bulldogs, 11th versus 9th on ladder. Geelong 11th, Western Bulldogs 9th. Western Bulldogs last week really were just living a nightmare last week against the West Coast Eagles. It was a disaster for them. It was one of the upsets of the year, if not the upset of the year, travelling West Coast against the Western Bulldogs at Marvel, and the Eagles did win. What a performance it was, though, from the Eagles, which their senior players stood up, and it was a brilliant win for them. Anyway, though, Western Bulldogs, not great last week. Geelong, not a great performance against St Kilda. I just had to remember who they played last week, and it was St Kilda at Marvel on the Saturday night, and it wasn't great. From Geelong, they kicked 8 goals, 7 for the game, 55 points for the game. It wasn't a great performance. Defensively, they weren't great. They gave up 12-16. Not great. Now, this week at GMHBA, they are going down to Geelong, which is a huge positive, and it has to be. If this was at Marvel, the Western Bulldogs could potentially win, because Geelong are without some of their huge stars, Cameron Hawkins, and I don't believe they're going to be ready in time to play this game. So this does give the Western Bulldogs a huge chance. Jack McRae does go out as well, I believe, but I'm pretty sure they'll be welcoming back Libba. I still feel like, now, this was, of course, my tips were made before I knew this news of, all the Cats stars being out. But I'm still pretty confident with my tip. I still feel like the Cats can get the job done by 26 points in Geelong. Such a huge home ground advantage. The Dogs haven't won there in a long time. I'm pretty confident with that. West Coast and Adelaide, Optus Stadium, Saturday night. And this game doesn't really mean anything either. West Coast, this is their farewell game for some of their stars of the football club. And, of course, they would love to send them out on a good note, beating Adelaide in the West, which it's not impossible. You can definitely beat Adelaide, but it's going to be pretty hard, I reckon, for West Coast. But brilliant win last week, though. Hats off to West Coast. Fantastic win there. Senior players stood up. Tim Kelly went absolute beast mode last week. What a win it was. And now they return to Optus Stadium, where they've been playing some pretty decent footy here. Aside from that Freo game a couple of weeks ago, they've been playing some pretty good footy at Optus Stadium, and they contended with some sides like Richmond and St Kilda, and obviously beat North. So, look, they're looking all right. Adelaide, of course, we know how good they've been this year, and their best footy can just about beat any side in the competition. In fact, it can beat any side in the competition, falling short to Melbourne, Collingwood, and Sydney. So, look, their best footy can beat very good sides. Now, I do feel like it is a pretty straightforward tip here. Some people are going upsets and tip West Coast, and West Coast definitely do have a huge occasion and a huge reason as to why they should win this game. But I'm going the safe tip here. Adelaide by 46 to finish off the season on a high for them. Sunday turns to, we go into Sunday now. And what a day of footy it's going to be. It's going to be a huge day. And first of all, Port Adelaide take on Richmond at the Adelaide Oval. Very early start on the Sunday, but that's just the way it's going to be rolling this week. And it's Port Adelaide 3rd hosting Richmond 12th. And look, Richmond, they've been okay this year, but I do feel like it's going to be pretty hard for them to get the job done in this game. And Port Adelaide, they were alright last week against Freo. It wasn't anything special, but going over to the West can be a bit of a challenge. Now, top 2 for Port Adelaide. If Brisbane do lose this game, if Brisbane do lose their game to St Kilda, they can finish top 2. They absolutely have to win here. I think they'll be able to win it relatively comfortably by 34 points. Sunday, Channel 7 game, Sydney and Melbourne at the SCG, 7th versus 4th. Sydney are in 7th, Melbourne are in 4th. And what a game this is going to be at the SCG. Sydney, what a win last week. Arguably enough, Adelaide were robbed, which I do agree. Adelaide were robbed last week, but Sydney got the 4 points, and that's the way it rolls. Because if Adelaide had won, it would have changed a lot more possibilities. And Melbourne, they are in the top 4. They did what they needed to do last week against Hawthorn and won the game. Now, Melbourne, it is tough to travel to the SCG. And I do feel like Sydney will get the win here by 7 points in a cracking game of footy. I reckon this will be one of the games of the round. In fact, it's probably the game of the round. It's going to be such a good contest. It's not really going to matter for top 4 hopes. It could, if Port Adelaide and Brisbane both lose, Melbourne could finish top 2. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where, if Melbourne can get the win, of course, how huge it is. And it'll be interesting to see what that will do to the top four. And if Sydney get the win, it could be a home elimination final in the SCG, which how huge that would be. Massive. Carlton and the Giants finishes off the round in a Sunday night time slot at Marvel Stadium. Carlton are in 5th. The Giants are in 8th. Carlton, they're on a rampaging roll at the moment. They are going bulldozer mode at the moment. Any challenge which comes in their way, they're just going through it perfectly. What a roll Carlton are on, 9 in a row. If they win this 10 in a row, and then the streak can go on into finals. And if results go to plan, or if results go a certain way this round, these two sides could be meeting in an elimination final again in a couple of weeks' time. So these two sides may see each other again, which, if this is a good game, could set up a cracker of an elimination final. Now, the Giants, if they win this game, regardless of what happened at GMHBA Stadium, they will be in the finals. But if Carlton win and the Dogs win, the Dogs will be in finals because the Giants will be knocked out. So it's 5th versus 8th. It's a huge game of footy. Giants, brilliant last week against Essendon. I think this will be another cracking game and a high-scoring game. I think Carlton will win by 13 points. Alright, so my tips for the round are Collingwood by 45. We've got Gold Coast by 28, Hawthorn by 16, Brisbane by 29, Geelong by 26, Adelaide by 46, Port Adelaide by 34, Sydney by 7, and Carlton by 13. By some of the margins I've gone this round, it's probably not going to be the most entertaining round of footy, but I do still feel like Sydney, Melbourne, Carlton, Giants, and probably Geelong, the Western Bulldogs, we do still have some very good games this round, and who knows how the other games are going to go. These are just my tips, so you guys can feel free to let me know your tips in the comment section. But yeah, who knows how this round is going to go, because round 24 can always be pretty crazy or pretty straightforward. Alright, so to avoid any confusion, the teams that are locked into finals, I'm just going to go ahead and do that right now. Collingwood, Brisbane, Port Adelaide, Melbourne, Carlton, St Kilda, Sydney, all locked into finals. The only side which is playing for a top 8 spot, which are currently in there, is the Giants. The Western Bulldogs are also playing for a top 8 spot, and Essendon, as I said, with their poor percentage, are mathematically out. So the ladder goes Collingwood, Brisbane and Port, and Melbourne, who all have massive games next week to decide how that top 4 will play out. Then Carlton, St Kilda, Sydney, GWS and the Western Bulldogs will have big games to decide how the top 8 will play out. Essendon, Geelong, Richmond, Adelaide, all those positions could exchange hands by the end of the year. So again, those 4 clubs have positions to play out for still. Fremantle, Gold Coast, those positions could be exchanged as well. And then Hawthorn, West Coast, North Melbourne. 18th, 17th might change. It might not, though. I'm pretty sure the bottom 3 will stay as it is, but that is what we've got at the moment. This is my predicted ladder at the end of the round. So Collingwood finish first. Brisbane get that all-important home qualifying final, which could lead to a home prelim. They finish second. Port Adelaide finish in third. Melbourne finish in fourth. Carlton finish in 5th, Sydney finish in 6th and get that all-important home elimination final against St Kilda, who finish in 7th. The Giants do finish in 8th position. The Cats finish in 9th. Adelaide finish in 10th, the Western Bulldogs in 11th, Essendon in 12th, Richmond in 13th, Gold Coast in 14th, Fremantle in 15th, Hawthorn in 16th, West Coast in 17th, and North Melbourne in 18th position. That is my final ladder for the end of the year. Which means if results do go in this way, it'll be Collingwood versus Melbourne as the first qualifying final, second qualifying final, Brisbane and Port. So Collingwood, Melbourne at the MCG, Brisbane, Port at the Gabba, Carlton, the Giants, probably at the MCG is the first elimination final, second elimination final, Sydney and St Kilda at the SCG. Speaking about things yet to be determined as well, we'll have to wait until the conclusion of the Carlton and Giants game to see who has won the Coleman medal. Charlie Curnow, very, very, very good chance to win it. But if Taylor Walker and Adelaide can kick enough goals on Saturday night against West Coast, if Taylor Walker can get enough goals to overtake Curnow, he'll probably have to snare about probably 11 to get the job done and hope that Curnow only gets 2 goals against the Giants. So it'll be pretty tough for Walker to get it from here. Charlie Curnow does look like he will probably win it from here. But again, though, still a fair bit to be played out there. Who will win the Coleman? Still got some huge games coming up in round 24. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please do make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. See you guys next time on the channel. Thank you guys so much. Bye everyone. Flame Footy out.